Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape for every one of us. I was kinda late, cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of the flow, yeah.
Hey y'all, I'm back with a new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. Of course, I am the creator of this platform and host of this platform, as well as contributing writer for Daily DDT and a color commentator featured in various promotions. And I'm so happy to be before you guys on this night with another special guest. So, of course, if you caught the first interview I did today with Stanley Carr of Wrestling with Heart, please check that out if you have not had the chance. But if you did watch it, thank you so much for doing so. But of course, I am back now with another special guest. He is Anthony Cole, and he is the owner and CEO of Brii Combination Wrestling. How are you, Anthony?
I am excellent. Steph, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm so happy that we were able to make time for each other.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start by asking you, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Oh man, I fell in love with wrestling when I was a little kid. Andre the Giant was my favorite wrestler. Like I remember the first time I saw him walk to the ring, and I was just like, "Oh wow!" I was like, and I've been in love with it ever since. Andre the Giant, the Hulk Hogan's, the Ultimate Warriors. Yeah, that was my era. You know.
Yeah, so your era was basically like the golden age of wrestling.
Yes, yes.
I definitely get that. That's kind of like the era of wrestling when my dad started watching too. So, something he and I used to do, we used to like sit on Saturdays and just watch a lot of DVDs with a lot of the older stuff.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate, watching that and just seeing how much it's sort of evolved, how much it's evolved over the years. But it's really insane to look back and see where it started from. So I can appreciate that.
Yes, indeed. What an evolution it has become.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the midst of you becoming a wrestling fan, when did you decide that you wanted to, create or be a part of the wrestling world on your own?
You know what? Before wrestling, I was in entertainment. I was doing hip hop, poetry, comedy, stuff like that. And my team, they always want me to try new adventures. And I said to them, look, we can't use every idea, but if you got something you think will work, pitch it to me. If it makes sense, let's make money. And one night they called me. My two guys called me at like 3:30 in the morning. They're like, Ant, we got a new idea for you. I'm like, guys, it's 3:30 in the morning. Like, what's up? They like, listen, how about we open a wrestling company? I'm like, nah, that can't be serious. I'm going back to sleep. They're like, nah, listen. So now they got my attention and they like, we should call it Brii Combination Wrestling and think about what the crowd's gonna say. I'm like, what the crowd's gonna say? They like BC Dub, BC Dub. And when they said that, I don't know why, but that like electrified me. So I'm like, all right, what we got to do? I'll try anything once. So, they helped me, they introduced me to a few people. They helped me find the venue. And because one of the guys was a wrestler, General Romero. He sadly passed away a few years ago, but, he was very instrumental in helping me get onto this side of entertainment, into the wrestling world. And you know what? had you told me 8 years ago that I'd be doing this and I'd be loving it, I'd be like, nah, no way, no how. But here we are today, and I absolutely love it.
That's insane. You said that at one point, you were in entertainment and you were like in music. So, what would you say are sort of like some similarities and differences between the music business and the wrestling business, if you would mind leaning into that?
Oh man, some similarities are it's like sort of like the same structure when you have to book the talent, get the venue, go out and market the product, stuff like that. And that aspect, there are a lot of similarities, especially when it comes to doing the budget, making sure everything runs smoothly. But then the biggest differences are in the music industry, people don't have to work with each other. If I have group A, they do they set, group B come out, they do they set. Even if group A and group B don't like each other, it doesn't matter because they don't have to deal with each other. And the wrestling world is a completely different beast. It's like, first and foremost, you got to make sure that that locker room is a comfortable environment. You don't want to have too many egos in the locker room. You don't want to have too many people in there that can't stand the sight of each other because I've seen it go down. I've seen it go down, right? So it's like you definitely don't want that. And I think that's the biggest difference in the two industries. Like in the wrestling world, you got to make sure that everybody has some type of respect and a level of like, protection for each other, for lack of a better term. Because, if you get in that ring with somebody who you don't trust, who you don't feel comfortable with, the slightest thing can happen. And the next thing you know, the ambulance is being called. So it's like, that's really the biggest difference there, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, the thing about wrestling is, from what I've learned from it, is that it's very collaborative to a degree. And you also have to, understand that you have to sort of create a safe space for people. And there have been people who have done a good job of that, and there are others who haven't done a good job of that historically.
Yes.
But the thing that I do appreciate is the idea that there are owners like you and like others who do strive to create an environment where the wrestlers can thrive and respect each other while working with each other at the same time.
Yes.
So I think that's really cool. The differences between music and that aspect of it, because I actually I have a degree in music, and at one point there's levels of it that sort of feels like there's a level of isolation with it, because not everyone, can do what you do, but at this, and you can't necessarily, you don't know exactly who you can trust at times.
Hmm.
So wrestling is really built on trust, and I think that that's definitely a cool thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
hmm So, with that in mind, and with you sort of making the transition into a businessman into wrestling, was there any difficulties in you transitioning from being a fan to a promotion owner, or was that sort of seamless for you?
From the behind the scenes business aspect of it, like raising the money, going out and finding sponsors, that was pretty much the same. But learning this business was a completely different ball game. Like when I first came into business, I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. I would call up and say, "Hey, I'd like to book you on my show." They'd say, "What's the name of your company?" I tell them, I'm like, and the first thing they would say is, "I've never heard of you." I'm like, "Well, this is my first year. I'm just starting." They're like, "You got any references? Do you know anybody? Does anybody know you?" I'm like, "Nah, this is my first year starting." I'm trying to explain that to these guys, and they had no interest whatsoever. So then I had to, find like the local guys that had some trust in me. And then we did our first show, and on my first show, I had some very good people on there. I had Mikey Whipwreck, I had Bull James, I had, you know, I'm about to say Tasha Stills, but she was on my second show. What is this? Oh, Sonia Strong. I had a lot of these people on there. So the word of mouth got around, and people then started saying, okay, let's give this guy a shot. But for me, the hardest transition was trying to get people to actually do a show. Because in the hip hop, I'd be like, hey, come do the show. We got Drewski, we got DJ Polo, we got this one there. Everybody's going to be in the building. Come down, let's do it. they would flock to me. You know, it was nothing, right? But then when I do the wrestling show, they like, who are you? So, but you know, I stayed diligent. I persevered. I got out there, met people, and 8 years later, here we are. Now it's a different ball game now. So,
Yeah, so essentially from what I'm hearing is that there was a level of starting over that you had to do.
oh yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of being transitioning into this new industry,
Mm.
but you kept the work going, and clearly, your promotion is successful, and it has lasted for 8 years, and that's to be commended because a lot of people, aren't willing to sort of start over. They would stick to what they know, but you were just like, no, let me try this new thing, and you kept doing it, and that's really, admirable.
Thank you. Yeah, it was tough, but it was worth it. It's definitely been worth it. You know, a lot of ups and downs, ins and outs, and you know, when we first came in the industry, they would say, "Oh, BCW, the inmates are running the asylum. They don't know what they're doing over there." And I would always say to myself, you know what? I'm gonna figure this out. Every time I heard the inmates running the asylum, it made me open a book. I'm like, I'm gonna figure. Right? And I just kept reading. I kept getting out there, you know, getting to know people, and yeah, it was a challenge, but it was definitely worth it, you know?
Yeah, I get it. So, what would you say is some of the best advice that you learned as you were becoming a promoter?
Oh man, the best advice, and you know what? I heard this advice on a podcast. It was the owner of CZW. I can't remember his name right now. Wait. DJ Hyde. DJ
Mm-hmm.
Hyde did a podcast one time, and he answered a question that I had for a long time. He said, you know, sometimes I call people and I ask them to do my show, and for whatever reason, either they don't call me back or they just don't want to do the show. And I would think about that for a long time, and I would wonder why they don't want to do my show. And he said, you know, one thing I've realized is that I can't take it personal. And that's how I
Mm.
felt in the beginning. I'm like, yo, why is BCW not good enough? Why do I see you doing this guy's show and that guy's show, but you don't want to do BCW? I'm like, you know, what's the difference? And I really did take it personal. But when I heard DJ Hyde say that, and he's been in the business way longer than I've been, so when he said that, I was like, you know what? There's got to be some truth to that. And then I just stopped, you know, I stopped letting it get to me. I stopped taking it personal. And, you know, I felt like a huge burden come off of me when he said that, you know. That I think that was like one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten since I've been in this industry.
That is really good advice. And CZW is another really good promotion that has grown, over the years. So I think that that's really good that you had got that piece of advice, even though it was just on a podcast and it wasn't necessarily personal, but it was still something you were able to learn from and make a part of your life. So I think that's good.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So in the midst of you, starting this promotion, and all of the above, what would you say was the hardest thing? Well, not really the hardest thing, but what were some difficulties that you faced in booking your very first show, and how did it, and what did you take from booking your first show and apply to the rest of your life?
When I when I booked my first show, I didn't have a clue about anything. They would say, these are the guys I was working with. They would say, this match is 8 minutes, bell to bell. I'm like, what does that mean? So, and then one person would explain it to me, and he'd say, okay, it means this and this and this. Another person would explain it to me, and it was like, it means this and this and this. And the two explanations were completely different.
Oh
I'm
wow.
like, I'm like, I don't understand it. And that was one thing that I used to always tell my team, like, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And they used to get so upset with me, like, you keep asking a million questions. We done told you the answer. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not getting a consistent answer. If I ask you this question, I get one answer. I ask him this question, I get another answer. Then when I go outside and ask the same question, I get another answer. I'm like, so someone's gotta be wrong and someone's gotta be right, but I don't know who. So then, as the as the years went on, then I finally figured it out. And like in my first show, we didn't have a time system, right? So the match is supposed to be 6 minutes. The match goes to 12 minutes, but I didn't know, like, I'm enjoying the match. I'm like a promoter, but this is my first show, so I'm a fan at the same time. So I'm looking at the match and I'm enjoying it. Meanwhile, my guys are saying, take it home, take it home. I'm like, what does that mean? So it was just like that. That was one of the biggest hurdles, like learning the terminology, learning like what actually went into designing and booking and making sure that everything ran smooth. And then when I first started running, I was in New York. So it was like dealing with the New York State Athletic Commission, the ambulance, the doctors, the licenses. It was, and if you made one little mistake, that could get your whole show shut down for whatever reason. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was difficult learning the ins and outs and what was accepted, what wasn't accepted. But we did it. We got it. And knock wood, we still here. I'm so happy.
That's really crazy. But yeah, the terminology, I could definitely understand, how it could have been difficult to learn that, the first go round. But at least, you caught on and realized,
Yeah.
what was actually what. Because our wrestling vocabulary and regular vocabulary are two
Ooh,
things that are just that
different
could be
things.
very far apart.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So, one thing that I have that you did mention the name of it and how the name came to be. So, how exactly did you come up with the idea of combination wrestling? Because not a lot of people think about combination wrestling like it's championship wrestling or something. So,
Mhm.
how did you come up with the name of Brii combination wrestling?
Well, you know what? I can't even take credit for the name. My daughter actually came up with the name. When my daughter was about 14 years old, she came to me and she said, Dad, I want to start a company, right? Because, like I said, I was always doing these other things, and she has that entrepreneurial spirit as well. And she came to me and she said, Dad, I want to start a company and I want you to help me grow it. So I said, okay, you let me know what kind of company you want to start, what's the name of the company, and we'll take it from there. So probably about 2 years went by. I didn't hear anything from her, and I thought she just forgot about it. So now one day I'm sitting in my office and she goes, Dad, I got it. I'm like, what you got? She's like, I got the name of the company. I know exactly what I want to do, and this is it. And she opened up a big portfolio because my daughter's an artist. So she's like, the name of the company is going to be Brii Combination. And I'm like, well, why is it going to be Brii Combination? She's like, because not only am I going to be a clothing designer, but I'm going to be a costume designer, and I'm going to create wedding dresses. And I'm like, okay, great. So she opened up her sketchbook and she had all of these drawings. The very first drawing, I'm actually going to open it up and bring it out of the archive, was a koi fish transforming into a dragon. And this was beautiful. We got it printed. This was probably one of our top selling pieces of merchandise when she first started. And since I already had the other entities, like I said, I was already in entertainment. And instead of having different names for the company, I just said, you know what? And my daughter's name is Brittany. That's where the Brie comes from. And since she was combining all the aspects that she had, it was combination. So now she put it together as Brie Combination. And instead of doing, like I said, the other entities, I just moved everything under Brie Combination. So now we have Brie Music, Brie Comedy, Brie Combination Wrestling. So it's a whole branch, a whole tree with many branches on it. So that's how that name came to be.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. So your daughter, essentially this is this Renaissance woman who can do so many things,
Yes.
and it spawns from that, and you combined everything, all of your entities into one thing, and Brie Combination Wrestling is one of the branches.
Yes, ma'am.
That is sick. That is so sick. Like, I think that is amazing. And just the idea that your wrestling company even has your daughter's name on it is
Mhm.
really amazing. And that's something that I can respect because, of course, HWP, the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, that's my last name too.
Ah,
So
see
there's
that?
like that's an extra sense of pride that you have, that you come with
Mm-hmm.
when you work hard and your name is literally on the brand. Like it's what
Exactly.
you represent, is who you are. So I think that's really cool. So in the midst of, you naming this promotion after your daughter, I imagine, that there has to be sort of a prioritization of women in wrestling that you have as well. So, what are your ways in which you sort of prioritize women's wrestling? Because I've seen a lot of the women's talent that you've had, like Faye Jackson, like Vicious Vicky, and so many others.
Oh yeah, when we first started, we were primarily male dominated, and we would do like one or two women's matches here and there. But then as the industry started to change, I started to notice that a lot of people like women's wrestling, but not only just women's wrestling, intergender wrestling. And when we started to do that, it just evolved. It evolved so much to the point where now, to start every year off, we do our annual Queen of the North show. And that is a show dedicated to all the independent women. That show is nothing but either intergender matches or the Queen of the North tournament, and just highlighting, showcasing the best of the best in indie wrestling, like Faye Jackson, Tasha Steeles, and we've had so many women come through. We've had Holiday, Sue Young, obviously Vicious Vicky, who's the current champion right now, and it's great. I love to see it, and that's what I was saying about my locker room. I have a zero tolerance policy. When the men and the women are together, like, we have to have respect for one another. I don't want to hear any bickering, any belittling, no animosity. And if that happens, I rectify the situation immediately. Like, I never want anyone to feel uncomfortable in my locker room. I had even hired Riley Shepard to be like my sensitivity liaison. So if anything happened in the locker room and maybe a young lady wasn't comfortable talking to me, I would tell them to talk to Riley. And then Riley would explain the situation to me. And even if you didn't want, me to know your name, Riley would just, tell me what happened anonymously. She wouldn't give me the names. And I think that made my locker room a lot better, a lot, safer, a lot, more enjoyable for people to come in. And that's how we kept it. And that's how we're going to keep it. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that you have sensitivity for your talent, especially also your women's talent, because I cannot like tell you how many stories I've seen on the
Oh,
internet and heard from wrestlers who feel like, their needs weren't met, or that nobody was really listening to them, or they didn't feel as safe or as comfortable as they could have been.
yeah.
But with that type of reinforcement, then they will feel safe and they can have their needs met. So I'm really glad that you take that seriously and that you take women's wrestling seriously in that way. Even though at one point you did sort of start with, the men and only have a couple of
Mm-hmm.
women's matches, you still very much took it seriously and grew with the times and evolved.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that I do appreciate. And Vicious Vicky has been on my show before.
Ah,
She's
okay.
amazing. She's amazing, and I'm
Yes.
so happy, just to see her wrestling career blossom the way that it has. So and really, she's the one who introduced me to your company, because
Oh,
I was
wow.
just like, yeah, because with her being champion, and I was like, oh, okay, so she's the champion of this. So that
Ah,
was
shout
great.
out to Vicky. Shout out. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We love her here. Um, so, how do you feel about the state of wrestling as a whole, and what's good about it and what can be improved upon, in your opinion?
The state of wrestling overall, it's like a shakeup. Everything is changing. I just recently saw that some Bobby Lashley no longer gonna be with the WWE, right? Like, I used to watch Bobby Lashley all the time. And I'm like, oh wow, like I can't believe it. Like, I thought that these guys were going to be at WWE and just retire from there and go off to greener pastures. But now with this whole shakeup, it's like, there's going to be some more opportunities. And then with AEW, making WWE like have to share the power now. It's a lot of opportunities out there for people, especially if they don't want to be at the at the top, there's a lot of room for those same guys here on the indies. We would love to have those guys, come represent our shows and, bring their fans with them to these indie companies like mine. And I think that's excellent. That gives guys like me the opportunity to reach for the bigger talent out there. You know that, and
Hmm.
I think that's good. But what's also bad is that now that I see it's always a double-sided coin, right? Now that these guys are able to do indie shows, their prices are gonna be astronomical, and everybody's gonna be trying to get the same talent. So now the indie guys are gonna be like sharks in the water, right? We smell blood in the water. We want to get this guy. We want to get that guy. So now we're all going to be competing for the same resources. So but I'm looking forward to see how it is, because this is when reputation is going to play a big part, right? Because you have some companies who, they sound good when you see them, but then when you lift up the hood, you're like, that engine doesn't sound so good. You know what I mean? It looks pretty, but it's not running the way it should. That's when we're gonna shake the tree and see who falls out and see who still stands strong. And I can tell you, I'm gonna stand strong. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know the way I operate and the way my team operates. So BCW is definitely gonna be around for another 8, 10, 12, 30 years. So we get ready to see some big changes over here.
Okay, I can definitely appreciate that. Like, because the world of wrestling is pretty large, and people, aren't just going to one place. They're going to other places as well that are just as high profile as like a WWE or
Mhm.
AEW. But
Yeah.
then with the independents, you can't really count them out either as well. Because with that, it's a great place where people can go to get their reps up and to have more opportunity in that way to build themselves up for more in that way. And I'm
Yes.
more than sure that BCW is definitely one of those competing promotions that can have opportunities like that.
Oh yeah.
So, so in speaking of that, who would you say is one of your dream talents that you would love to book for a show for BCW?
You know what? I was just talking about this. I would love to book the Hurt Locker. Oh man, those guys! That would be like phenomenal. Like, we've had some amazing talent come through. I've had Moose, I've had Leo Rush, Human Tornado, Billy Gunn. Like, the list goes on and on. And even with the ladies, I've had Chris Statlander, Davine, Jordan Grace. Like, the list goes on and on. But now, like I said, now that these guys are like leaving the top tier companies and they are available for the indies. Oh yeah, definitely. The first team, the first faction I love to have at BCW is the Hurt Locker. Yeah, yeah. And I already
Okay.
know who I put them against too. Oh man. It'd be beautiful. Yes. Yes.
Yes. That sounds great. Now, is there a talent that you have had on your on BCW before who you've seen, who you've seen grow and get to a higher platform that you're proud to have had on your show?
Oh yes, you know what? And the most recent one is Willow Nightingale. When I first started in this industry, I think Willow, either she was like a year in. I remember going out to Deer Park, watching her train, and I was like, wow, this young lady's really gonna be something. And I just watched her grow through the years, and now she's the champion. And her and Faye Jackson actually just won the tag titles, right? And
Hmm.
I'm like, oh wow, like, oh man, I gotta get them on the show. Like, Faye is gonna be on my next show coming up, and I definitely want to bring Willow back. And if I can bring them back as the tag team, oh man, even better. I would love that.
Oh yes, Willow is somebody I love and respect so much. Like just
Mhm.
having, I actually had the privilege of being on a show, Black Girl Magic, in 2022 with Willow.
Nice.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, because I was on commentary and she was in the tag team Thick and Juicy with Brooke Valentine. And that was Thick and Juicy 2.0 because Faye
Right.
had retired at
Yeah.
that point, and she was my commentary partner. So I essentially, just had the chance to work with them, and they were so amazing and just so open to work with, and I was just so happy. So seeing her rise up in AEW and win these titles and compete with, Mercedes Monet and so many others. It's just a blessing.
Wow.
Um, I just want to see her, just take over the world because she's just such a nice person and she's so talented.
And I'm cheering for her too. I'm so proud of her. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So if BCW were to grow to possibly get like a television deal or something like that, would you be open to that, or are you just okay with where you are right now?
No, I would love that. I would love a television deal. I'm actually in contact with Tubi right now to try and get something on there.
Okay.
So, we gotta start. We gotta start wherever we can start at, and then just keep climbing. So I'm reaching out to everybody.
Yeah, I definitely get it. Like, I'm really excited for you in reaching out for people like that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really great. So, as a wrestling fan, what has been your favorite thing to watch in terms of wrestling and how it's grown, um, from a fan perspective?
You know what? I actually enjoy AEW, but I think I'm a little bit biased because a lot of people on AEW, I know them, right? Like they on
Yeah.
my show. So when I see like MJF, like MJF was on my show a few times, and I always look at this match. He did a match against CPA. And these guys, this is the funniest thing I ever seen. So they were playing like checkers or chess in the middle of the ring, right? So now the game is over. They toss the thing, and Max he grabs CPA, he grabs him, he rips his shirt off, and CPA had another shirt and tie underneath that shirt and tie. And when I saw this was the first time I've ever seen anything like this, and I started cracking up. I was like, oh wow. I'm like, that's so hilarious. So to see MJF there, all the people that's on AEW, like Orange Cassidy, and we actually did a wedding, a cold day in hell, November 19th, 2019. We did a wedding. Orange Cassidy was on it. Chris Dickinson was on it. Ophidian, like all of these guys happened to be available that day. And they all came and was a part of the wedding. And now I see these guys on AEW, like even Private Party, a lot, just a lot of people. The list goes on and on. So when I see them on AEW, it's like, man, it can be done. It can be done. But you know what's the biggest shining moment for me out of all the people? And not to take anything away from anybody, but as you can see, I don't know if you can see this flyer right here. So this was Anniversary 3 the hard way. Darius Carter was the champion, and his opponent on Anniversary 3 was Austin Theory. Okay?
Wow.
So then Darius and I actually happened to be at WrestleMania 2023 when Austin Theory opened up the WrestleMania against John Cena. And Darius and I were sitting there, and Darius looked at me. He goes, oh, what's going to happen? And I'm like, you better believe it. We watching Austin Theory open up WrestleMania, and Darius beat Austin Theory for the title on Anniversary 3 at Brii Combination Wrestling. Like, that was such a surreal moment to me, So it's like a lot of things that have come through the door. I see these guys up there, and it lets me know, like, you know what? Hard work and dedication does pay off. So, each time I feel like I'm down in the dumps, I just go and look at AEW or WWE, and I see one of the guys that actually came through BCW, had a great time, had nothing but good things to say. And I just feel like, the inmates were running the asylum, but the asylum is running like a well-oiled machine now.
Yeah, that is so great. And I was actually at that WrestleMania in LA too.
And I
Like
like,
that,
yeah.
yeah, that was an insane
Oh,
experience. But yeah, that WrestleMania is honestly one of my favorites.
mm-hmm.
And Austin Theory really is, a hard worker and he's very passionate. And Darius Carter, he's someone who I want to see get all of his things too.
Yeah.
Like my sick dream match for him would be him versus MJF. Like
Ooh.
that sounds insane,
Ooh.
but
Yes.
that I would love to see those two actually fight each other because they just seem so similar, like very similar to me. And
Mm-hmm.
if they went like in a war of words on the microphone, it would be really
That would be
amazing
amazing. Oh man,
because
yes.
they're both so mean. So it's just like
Right.
I just wonder how that would go. So I
They
want
don't
Darius
hold any
Carter.
punches. Oh
Yes,
wow.
I want Darius Carter to get his things as well because he's been working really, really hard over the years.
Yeah. Darius is definitely due. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I imagine you must be very proud.
Very proud. Very proud. Yes.
Yes. So, as with all of the shows that you have created and you've helped to cultivate in BCW, which show would you say is your absolute favorite one that you've done so far?
My absolute favorite one. I have a lot of favorites, but the top one is A Cold Day in Hell. We actually did a wedding, a real live wedding. It was Sean and Jen Clancy. They met on a dating site. Their first date was at BCW. And then 3 years later, they get married at BCW. Like,
Oh,
oh man, and that show was so great. I will never do another Cold Day in Hell. Like that show is historic, and every once in a while, especially in November, I go in, I watch that show, and I look at it from top to bottom, how the ring was decorated. And let me tell you something: to put this show together for me was so difficult. That was the only time I've ever said, "Man, I can't do this."
oh,
And it was just difficult because it was so many moving parts. Right, I had to make sure everything was perfect, and we hit some speed bumps, but we got through it. And like I tell my team, speed bumps just slow us down, but they don't stop us. So we kept going, and let me tell you, at the end of that show, Sean and Jen came to me, and they were like, "This is exactly what we wanted. We couldn't ask for anything more." So oh man, yeah, that's my proudest moment right there of BCW. And you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of proud moments. Like, we had Billy Gunn at our first anniversary. We had Mikey Ripwreck, some legends on our very first show. So throughout the years, it's been tremendous. But when you ask me what's my favorite, what's the one that stands out the most? A Cold Day in Hell.
wow. Just the idea of a wedding at a show that just like we've seen it done on TV, but it's always exploded in some kind of way. But the idea that this real couple who met at a show winds up getting married at one, that's absolutely beautiful.
Right? Oh man, it was.
That is so nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. See, that's giving me an idea, but I just don't think I can do it. It's okay. But my last question for you is, what does the future hold for you, Anthony, in BCW?
Listen, the sky is the limit. So let me tell you, and this you're going to be the first one to hear this. So for the last 2 weeks, I actually been in Paris and in London. I went to Paris originally for business, and then we ended up going to the Olympics. So I got to see the USA team. I got to see Leon Marchand win that gold medal. So that was great. And then when we went to London, I hooked up with a couple of wrestling companies out in London. And as of right now, we are working on a deal to do BCW London.
Whoa.
Yes. So hopefully, but I don't want to say hopefully, we're putting all the paperwork together now. We're looking at, the spots and the locations where we could do something. I definitely want to send my champions over to London to, get a feel for, see how it would be for them over there. And then hopefully we can do 2 shows a year in London. And I also spoke to some people because, I also have business in Ireland. So I've been to Ireland probably about 5 or 6 times already. And I just found out that there is a wrestling company in Southern Ireland. And I'm in communication with those guys as well. They don't run as many shows in Ireland as they do in London. But hey, if I can get my guys over to Ireland as well, That's also a plan as well. But the first thing is going to be London, then Ireland, and then we're going to be touring all of UK, and we're going to be everywhere that we can be across the pond. So get ready. Like you're going to see some big things happening. So yeah, that's where I want to go. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I was in London. Let me tell you something. London was amazing. It was scary though because they drive on the wrong side of the street. Well, at least the street. So every time I'm crossing the street, I'm always looking the wrong way. I'm like, look this way, but on the ground, it tells you which way to look. Like I'm looking left, and on the ground it says look right. So I look right, and I'm like, oh snap, the car's coming from this way. So it was quite an experience, but I love it, and I am ready to see BCW in London. We're gonna have a great time. So stay tuned for more news on that because it will be coming.
Okay, BCW International exclusive on HWP. I can't wait to put that out. That sounds really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
And even you moving with the UK into even Ireland. Maybe you'll go to Africa one day.
Hey, I would love it. Morocco, go down there, of course.
Yes. Yes, got to do that. Well, Anthony, it's been such a joy to have you on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And if you can, just tell everybody where they can follow you and what you've got going on.
August 18th, and less than 2 weeks from today, BCW presents the Grand Rumble, a tribute to Mama Pan. This is going to be our first time doing a Rumble of any sort. So we got 20 of the best competitors coming out, and the winner of this Rumble gets to face the man, the myth, the legend himself, Darius Carter, for the World Heavyweight Championship. So that's going down August 18th at the Mecca, Richfield Park, New Jersey, 106 Bergen Avenue. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, tickets are available on eventbrite.com. Just go grandrumble.eventbrite.com, get your tickets right there. And if you haven't been keeping up with BCW, you can check out my YouTube-based series Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Monday, we have Monday night's main event, which is a tribute to Friday night main event, which is what I used to always get in punishment for because it came on so late. My mother would tell me to go to bed, and I'd be like, okay, and then I'd have the covers over my head watching TV. So I'd get in trouble every time that came on, right? And then Tuesday is going to be How Did We Get Here? It shows like where BCW started at, and it takes an in-depth look at certain characters. So right now, on the last show, me and Anthony Gangone had some words that we said to each other, and it popped off. So on Tuesday, you get to see how that started and where it's headed. Then on Thursday, we do Throwback Thursday. So we've had so many people come through the show, and a lot of people don't know, like, where did BCW come from? Who's been on the show? What have we missed? So Thursday is like Throwback Thursday, a tribute to all of the exciting shows that we had. And last but not least, as we talked about earlier, Friday is Fabulous Female Fridays. So I put up an exciting female match every Friday on YouTube. And these shows come on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 7 p.m. And you can check them out. Actually, one of them just came on today, Throwback Thursday. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. And of course, follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Brii Combination Wrestling, BRII_combination. And you can check it all out right there.
Absolutely. Thank you again so much for coming on HWP. And of course, know that you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy, and follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and on X/Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. Please listen to this episode and the other episode I had with Stanley Carr today on audio as soon as it becomes available. And you can go on the YouTube and subscribe and watch the interview as it took place here. So, of course, thank you again, Anthony, for coming on the show. And if you ever want to come back, you are welcome to it.
Oh, most definitely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, of course, this has been HWP with your girl Stephanie Hardy and Anthony Cole of BCW. And until next time, bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.